Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today, we will be discussing about the situation in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit and Baltistan. Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan are parts of undivided Jammu and Kashmir. These areas were captured by Pakistan militarily in 1947. Since then, Pakistan has been ruling these areas with an iron fist and working on changing the demography of these regions, particularly in Shia-dominated Gilgit-Baltistan. There have been movements for independence from Pakistani rule, one of which was led by Amanullah Khan, the late leader of Kashmir Liberation Front. Pakistan has been crushing any kind of dissent with brute force. Even recently, we saw a Kashmiri journalist and activist being tortured in Muzaffarabad after he removed Pakistani flag from a pole on a main road. Several leaders and activists campaigning for independence from Pakistan have been forced to go into exile in European countries or the US. One such leader is Professor Sajjad Raja, who heads National Equality Party or NEP of Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir Gilgit-Baltistan. Professor Raja is living in exile in London and is unable to return to his homeland because of fear of retribution by Pakistani authorities. Today, Professor Raja joins us in this episode of the agenda to tell us about the situation in Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir and Gilgit and Baltistan. But before we start the conversation, let's have a look at this small report.
Pakistan keeps ranting about the rights of Kashmiri people, but itself has been indulging in gross human rights violation and atrocities against the local people of the territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan under its illegal occupation. These areas, which are part of undivided Jammu and Kashmir, were occupied forcibly by Pakistan in 1947 through military force. The locals of these occupied territories have been for long seeking freedom from Pakistani rule, but the Pakistani authorities have been crushing dissent with brute force. To suppress the growing voices for freedom from Pakistani occupation in those areas, the Pakistani authorities have put thousands of leaders and activists behind bars or forced to go into exile. Pakistan also has been undertaking demographic change in these areas to dilute the voices seeking independence. Even reporting of such incident is not permitted. However, these voices are now being articulated through the social media, even though Pakistan has not allowed 4G internet services in occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. The fact that local people of Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan do not want to live under Pakistani rule was amplified recently when a Kashmiri journalist and activist, Tanveer Ahmed, removed the Pakistani flag from a pole in Dadial area of Pak-Occupied Kashmir. While the locals of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan have been demanding freedom from Pakistani rule, India too has lately been demanding that Pakistan should vacate those illegally occupied areas. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our special guest, Professor Raja, who joins us straight from London. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Ajay ji. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you on the program. Sir, let me begin by asking you about the general situation in Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. How is the situation there? Because we hear a lot of stories about atrocities, torture, etc.
In Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan, the situation is very very disturbing, I would say. We are very upset because there is no respect of human rights, basic human rights, basic political rights. People don't have any constitutional rights in Pojk and Gilgit-Baltistan, and they don't have any economic rights. And any voice which is raised for these rights is mercilessly crushed. So, yeah, that is the situation, which is very upsetting, very dire.
So, if we talk about the latest developments, there are reports that there is a proposal to hold elections in that region. How do you see that development?
Elections?
Yeah.
Well, there has never been any election in Pojk and Gilgit-Baltistan. There have always been selections because people are not allowed to take part in these elections. Only stooges, only puppets of Pakistani regime, Pakistani establishment, they are allowed, and they are given a chance to show their faces. And even behind the scene, these are only faces, and decisions are made by the agencies, and they decide who has to go to the assembly and who has to form the government and who has to sit there. There are no elections.
We hear a lot about Pakistan trying to change the demography of particularly Gilgit-Baltistan. So, what is your view on that? What is the situation like there?
Ajayji, it's not just Gilgit-Baltistan, it's Pojk as well. Pakistan, since 1947, Pakistan has been trying continuously and has been, working on a plan basically to change the demographic constitution of Gilgit-Baltistan and Pojk. And there are many settlers there. In some areas, even they are more than the state subjects. And this is the situation, and this has been happening for last 73 years. Now those settlers, their generations have born here, their children and grandchildren have born here, and you can't even, only local people know that these are people from Punjab, or people from KPK or Pakistan. Otherwise, anybody who goes from outside won't be even able to recognize that these are settlers, because they speak our language. They are mixed up in a way that, even they have adopted our culture, and they stand with Pakistan. And recent, example, this Tanveer Ahmad's example, what happened in Dadial is a very recent, this week's example, that these people
Tanveer Ahmad journalist you are referring to, no?
Sorry?
You are referring to Tanveer Ahmad, journalist and activist who was tortured.
Tanveer Ahmad, journalist who is in prison now, who was captured who was arrested in Dadial. Yeah. So that is the most recent example.
He was arrested for removing that flag, Pakistani flag, isn't it?
Yeah, he was arrested for removing the Pakistani flag, and then it was only those settlers, Pathan settlers and Punjabi settlers, who stood against him, or who stood against the local population, and they even assaulted him physically. And then they called the agencies. Agencies were already there, but they went to the police, and they are siding with the government and with the agencies. So I would say, Ajayji, it's basically Pakistani settlers who are supporting Pojk government and Pakistani agencies now. Local population, half of our population is abroad now, in exile, or because of economic suppression. Our people are forced to leave Pojk and Gilgit-Baltistan. So about half of the population is outside. So half of the population which is there, they are not with Pakistan, they are not supporting the POJK government and their illegal and unconstitutional actions. And so these are people from Pakistan, from Punjab, from KPK who support Pakistani government, Pakistani establishment and POJK government.
Professor Saab, you made a very significant observation or information you gave that half of Pakistan occupied Kashmir people is in exile. Did I hear it correctly?
Yeah. If we talk about POJK, then it's over 50% population. Over 50% population of POJK. But when we talk about jointly about Gilgit-Baltistan and POJK, then it's about 50%. Yeah, and this is very sentimental issue for me, Ajay-ji. Please forgive me if I become like if I can't control my emotions, but the life we are living under Pakistan and the stories which we hear on a daily basis are so disturbing that we can't even narrate what is happening there.
I understand. I can understand. How long have you been in exile, and what is the mood like in among the local people of POJK and Gilgit-Baltistan?
I permanently I came out of the country in 2000. It was about 2000 when I left my homeland, and there are many people who are abroad for political reasons and for economic reasons for over 30, 40, 50 years now.
Why did you leave your homeland?
Ajay-ji, actually we are not able to do any political activity there. Our political organizations are banned. They are classified as illegal entities, unconstitutional organizations. We can't do any activity. I give you example. The most recent thing is POJK, which is called Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Azad Jammu and Kashmir Elections Act 2020. The notification of this act is published on 24th of June this year, so just 2 months ago. And Article 27 and 26 of this act says that nobody is allowed to oppose Pakistan or oppose the ideology of Pakistan or oppose the idea of accession to Pakistan, and nobody is allowed to receive any foreign funding. Foreign funding means
but Professor Saab, you mentioned accession.
Sorry?
But you mentioned accession, but did Kashmir accede to Pakistan? It was forcibly occupied, isn't it?
No, Kashmir never acceded to Pakistan. Kashmir is forcibly, unconstitutionally and illegally Jammu Kashmir, parts of Jammu Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan are occupied by Pakistan, but they call it ideology of accession to Pakistan.
Isn't that
Pakistani
a joke?
Puppets and sorry?
Isn't that a joke?
Yeah, it's a joke, and it's really nonsense, like no law on earth can, no legal provision can interpret this situation as moral, political, and constitutional.
What is as I asked earlier also, what is the mood of local people against Pakistan? Because we have heard that people don't want to live with Pakistan, they want independence. In fact, I remember Amanullah Khan had led a movement for liberation of Pakistan occupied Kashmir from Pakistan for years. So what is the mood like in POJK?
people of POJK, there have been several, like a few surveys now. The latest was done by this, Tanveer Ahmed, journalist we have been talking about.
Yeah.
And the report was published in August 2017. And Tanveer Ahmed visited all districts, all tehsils and towns of POJK. He met 10,000 people. He conducted 10,000 interviews. And then he published a report which said that over 73% population is not willing to live with Pakistan. So that is the most recent survey, which we believe is a very genuine situation, because 10,000 people were interviewed in detail, and that was the outcome. And Pakistani occupation is not accepted by general public now. The reason being that Pakistan is not giving any sort of, as I have already said, any sort of rights to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan is only interested in our economic resources, our natural resources, and unfortunately, Pakistani establishment has decided that they have to grab these resources on the price of our people, on the price of our dignity, on the price of our identity, and on the price of our well-being. So Pakistan is Pakistan has made the policies to loot, to plunder our wealth, our resources, and Pakistan is not concerned with our very existence. And this is what people have now realized, because now it's social media era, information technology is very common, though we have only 2G and 3G facilities in Pojk and Gilgit-Baltistan, but still people can reach some sort of information, they can access information, and particularly in last 10, 12 years, they have realized that Pakistan means only resources of state of Jammu and Kashmir, and Pakistan is not concerned with the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and so people are not happy with Pakistan. People don't want to live with Pakistan.
So as a Kashmiri, you are saying that Pakistan has no love for Kashmiris, only their resources. So how do you see when Pakistan raises and rants about this part of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, that Kashmiris are our life and blood, and etc., and all that? How do you see that?
You mean people of Kashmir Valley?
Yeah, Kashmir Valley, yes.
Okay, the first thing is Pakistan is not concerned, or Pakistan has never talked about people of Jammu and people of Ladakh. Pakistan only talks about people of Kashmir Valley. And that is only because of their religious background. And Pakistan has been actually able to, over the years, Pakistan has been able to buy some people in Kashmir Valley. Pakistan has installed some puppets there, and through them, Pakistan has sent money there, and Pakistan has sent arms there. And there are not even in thousands, there are just a few hundred people who belong to private armies which are supported financially, and military equipment and everything is sent from our part, which is Pojk, to those areas, and they do terrorism, they create disturbance, they do violence. And then, Pakistan says that, well, people are fighting against India because they are Muslims and they don't want to live under India or with India, which is a false propaganda, basically, which is not the fact. The fact is that people are being forced to look like that they are fighting. In fact, it's not just less than 2% people even in Kashmir Valley who support this sort of ideology.
You are also a Muslim, a Kashmiri Muslim under Pakistani rule. You don't want to live with Pakistan. So what is your...
No, not at all. Not at all.
So what will be your message for the people of Kashmir, those supporters who are supporting, who want to merge with Pakistan, particularly Gilani types and all those Hurriyat leaders and others? What will be your message for them?
Ajay, my message is that states are not formed on the basis of religions. If religion was the only foundation of the formation of any state, there would not have been like 55 or 54, whatever, 56 Muslim states in the world, and because states are formed on the basis of political aspirations, political rights, human rights, and economic perspectives, and economic future is basically kept in mind when people form the states. It's not the religion. And Pakistan is basically a country which I personally don't believe that there is any religion, or there is any religious government there, or there is any religious system. And this is what people of Bangladesh had realized after living under Pakistani yoke for less than 25 years. They realized that Pakistan is not an Islamic country, and this is a false proposition that Pakistan stands for Islam. So my message is that please look at your economic rights, look at your identity, look at your economic future, look at your constitutional and legal rights, and then decide what do you want to do. Like this is my message for the Muslims of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, wherever they live. Whether they are in Pojk, they are in Gilgit-Baltistan, or they are in Kashmir Valley, Jammu, anywhere. That is my message.
So how do you see the role of Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani types and Yasin Malik and all those people who have been propped up by Pakistan, and they have been damaging Kashmir Valley for long?
Sayyid Ali Gilani Saab and Yasin Malik Saab and Hurriyat Conference leaders, basically they all have been Hurriyat Conference. They have been funded by Pakistan. They have received financial support, not financial support, all the money.
Funding, entire funding.
Entire funding over last 30 years from Pakistan, and they have stood for Pakistani policies, and they have worked for Pakistani objectives and Pakistani motives, and they have followed Pakistani guidelines. And this is, this is not any hidden secret. Everybody in the state of Jammu and Kashmir knows that. So I would request the general public not to follow these people who stand for Pakistan, or who stand for foreign occupation, or who just try to divide them in the name of religion or in the name of sects. Just look at your economic and your constitutional rights, and then make
your
up
well-being.
your minds.
So there is one more open secret about terror camps being operated by Pakistani agencies from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. What do you say? How many camps must be there, and what is your view on that?
These camps are generally established or built in woods, actually, on the mountains and away from the general public. But I have seen with my own eyes there have been camps in Pojk, and this is this is a fact which everybody knows, that people are sent from POJK with arms and ammunitions to Jammu and Kashmir to fight there, and they give Pakistani establishment give them training here in POJK, and even in KPK and Punjab. They give training to people, and then they send them over the LOC or ceasefire line. In numbers, I'm not sure how many in camps would be there but definitely there are camps there.
But Pakistan keeps denying about these terror camps and funding and training of them. And we see that the FATF case is hearing is just coming up maybe next month. So what will be your message as a Kashmiri who is from POJK? What will be your message to the FATF about Pakistan's denial about supporting terrorism?
No, this denial is not accepted. Even we are the people from Jammu and Kashmir. We know what's happening there. But even the word, no other countries, they don't even believe, and they don't even believe in Pakistan, or they don't even trust Pakistan. And that is the reason that Pakistan failed to even muster support of 15 countries to submit a resolution in United Nations Human Rights Council for a debate on human rights violations in Kashmir. That is the reason. The world knows that what Pakistan is doing. Pakistan is sponsoring terrorism. Pakistan is funding terrorism. And Pakistan is creating violence, hatred, and divisions in the state of Jammu and Kashmir just to capture the resources, which are probably without those resources, Pakistan won't be able to survive. So that is Pakistani agenda, and everybody in Jammu and Kashmir, whether they are in POJK, they are in Gilgit-Baltistan, or they are in Kashmir Valley or Jammu, Ladakh, they know that Pakistan is sending armed militiamen and terrorists to fight with Indian Army and Indian security agencies. This is not something which is hidden. So everybody knows. So we stand for, our party stands for peace, democracy, secularism, and social justice. And our message is that please oppose this violence, oppose this terrorism, oppose this militancy, and stand up for peace, stand up for the democracy, because that is the only way forward.
Okay, we are running out of time, sir. One last question, maybe brief comments. India has been demanding that Pakistan should vacate all these illegally occupied Kashmir, areas of Pakistan, occupied Kashmir, as well as Gilgit-Baltistan. What is your view on that?
I personally, I support this demand from India, but this shouldn't be a demand, because I think India has been again not fulfilling her duties as they were bestowed on India through the accession treaty, which was made by our King Maharaja Hari Singh. And I believe, and our party believes, that under the terms of that accession treaty, it was India's basic moral duty to protect the lives and dignity and property and well-being of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which India has badly failed. And India should not just make demands, but India should support the people of Jammu and Kashmir who don't want to live under Pakistani occupation, so that people can reunify, and then they can discuss with India what should be the future constitutional status of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and what sort of arrangement there should be.
I cannot end this bulletin since you have talked about India's role. So, do you say there are some voices that India should take military action to retrieve Pojk and Gilgit-Baltistan? Do you support that?
Well, this is they have already had wars, India and Pakistan. Personally, we are against any war, because wars and battles, like armed conflicts, they just give destruction, and so we don't. As a party, we are against any sort of war, any sort of military engagement. But there needs to be, like some strategy, and obviously India and their planners, they should think about it.
So, India should have a strategy to retrieve parts of J&K and Gilgit-Baltistan which are under illegal occupation of Pakistan. Thank you so much, Sajjad Saab. Thank you so much for participating in this debate. This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.